Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. Is my microphone working? Yes? Well, that's a good start. Okay. And I left my notes here in case I forget something, but I don't think that's relevant because Kathy just stole all my thunder. And if that was, in case that wasn't enough, then I had to listen to the introduction you did. I don't know who wrote that. I need to have a word with the people who write the bios. I need a shorter one and more to the point. And some of these things you mentioned, I didn't remember. So I'm humbled and honored. Thank you very much for having me today. I'm really passionate. I came from New Jersey. I live in Jersey City. So instead of Basking Ridge today, I came here. And it's, yes, my first year anniversary today. That's one part that she stole. But it's great. I mean, it's my first day here in this office, which is beautiful and a beautiful environment, and I really love it. And one of the reasons why I came, apart from being new in the company, you tend to say yes when they ask you to speak at events, is because I'm really passionate about this topic. And I mean, AI is very difficult to overstate in terms of importance. So I'll probably skip that part. And when I look at what Verizon has been doing over the last decade, we've been deploying machine learning first, now AI in nearly all processes. But it's true that the whole thing is scaling now. We produce 70 billion data points per day that feed AI engines that assist us in self-healing, self-organized networks. They assist our technicians in root cause analysis. We deploy to just do a better planning so that we plan our coverage and how we expand our capacity, fitting better with what our customers need. You name it, we deploy everywhere. Of course, that's enabling our customers to do things that they want to do with AI when they want, whatever they want. And that is far more important than what we're doing. We're using it for our own purpose and in our own company. We are enabling companies like ours to use it for their own use cases. You name it, like healthcare was mentioned, manufacturing, public safety, and also in consumer, privately. All of us, every now and then, we use AI. So that drives the economy, society, and the industry. And that's why it's important. And it's very well aligned with the ambition of the administration to make sure that the US leads this race, dominates globally. But what is the currency? How are we going to win this race? Obviously, everybody talks about silicon, and silicon is probably one of the most important pieces, GPUs. Now everybody knows what the GPU is and what it does. That's part of the currency. Now, these little things, they consume a lot of power and they take a lot of cooling. So power, space, and cooling, interestingly, is also part of the currency set. That is where maybe the intersection starts with the wireless carriers, because we do have power, space, and cooling available, and we have it in the places that matter. Where? Close to the customer. Why that matters? Because the latency is shorter. What's the latency? As the round trip time. So the time it takes for an information, a packet, or an order to reach the server and come back. The closer you are to the customer, the faster it is the response. So having infrastructure and having power, space, and cooling near to the customer, it matters. The other thing that also matters is the ability to be able to communicate and shift big, vast amount of data through fiber optics between these centers. Why? Because when you use AI, normally you do something that's called inferencing. So you ask a question and the server or the GPU or the AI infrastructure processes it and infers an answer for you. But almost constantly, all the AI infrastructure is getting updated to the current knowledge, and that's called training. And that implies moving vast amount of data from data centers. The carriers, telco in general, wireless carriers, we act in both places. And you can think of that kind of fiber network that connects the data center as the central nervous system that enables AI. So I couldn't agree more that wireless infrastructure is AI infrastructure. Anyway, how can we win this race? What sort of policy we need? I would say we're looking for something that is risk-based, a sliding scale of obligations that are tied to the harm, potential harm that is caused. That would be one aspect. Another aspect would be a policy that differentiates the role that different players are playing. In our case, it's very clear. It's not the same to be the developer of the AI than to be the deployer of the AI. And you shouldn't be having the same obligation. The same when we think of consistent horizontal policies that, for instance, not necessarily make everything critical on a critical network infrastructure. So just because you are critical network infrastructure, it doesn't mean that your obligations to AI should be critical. If that's all well and good, I would probably stop here. So that's it. I think it's clear. That's the arms race, power, space, cooling, GPUs, communications, here and there, policy, obligations, depending on your role, done. Not exactly. So this is where the arms race is today. But someone once told me, you have to skate where the puck is going, not where the puck is. This is where the puck is, but where is it going? So I think we are about to witness another iPhone moment. You remember? Some 10, 12 years ago, probably more, time flies. When the Jesus Christ. I'm closer to retirement now. 18 years ago, the iPhone happened, and it changed everything. Everything in how consumers access the internet, everything, new businesses, new excuse me, new services, new economies. It was when the smartphone started. We're about to see a similar moment that is driven by what? A change on the interface, which is the same that the smartphone did. It changed the way we interface with the internet. Well, a new change is coming. For the last probably 3 decades, for as long as internet existed, we've been looking at internet through a rectangle. And that rectangle of variable dimensions, depth and width and height, and variable colors from green phosphorus to variable definition, but always a rectangle. That is going to change, and it's going to change soon. Which, by the way, personally, I can't wait, because I am just done with walking on the street or trying to run. I'm a runner. I try to run, and I bump into people with their nose on their phone all the time. So I think we need a user interface that is more embedded with our environment, with our real world, that augment reality, not substitute reality. That brings you closer to people. I think potential is a very good thing, and it's going to drive change. Where is it coming? It's going to come from smaller, wearable, sensing devices. Now, it's debatable if it's going to be glasses, if it's going to be something else. Honestly, I don't know. But what I don't think is debatable is that it's coming and it's going to happen. Now, this is very relevant for AI. I think it's particularly relevant for AI. Why? Because all this sensing and all these wearables can be used to provide context to AI on an always-on mode. So think of it, normally the use you make of AI today is transactional, in that you ask a question, And the question is answered based on the information that you have already provided to your agent of choice. The more information you provide and the more context you provide, normally, the better the answer. Well, that's going to change. You're going to have wearables and sensors that sense your environment. They listen to everything you can listen to. They actually listen to more things that you listen to because they actually listen. They can see things that you can't see. I saw a demo once. It was very cool, and the artificial intelligence agent could actually answer questions like, what is this algorithm in the whiteboard doing, and things super advanced. But the one thing really impressed me is when the person conducting the demo said, I think I forgot my keys somewhere. And the AI said, yes, you left them on your desk. I saw them 15 minutes ago. That's what's coming. So what's coming is, instead of my notes that I have here that I wrote on the train from Newark to Washington, without me asking, my AI agent will instruct me probably through some, I don't know, if it's classes, the speakers, or maybe it will send me a briefing written with how I should plan this keynote today. It'll not be like what you may get from Gemini or ChatGPT if you ask, which is a pretty standard internet-based briefing. It'll be based on everything I know, or everything I ever knew and I forgot, but it didn't. And it'll be based on my experience, my opinions, because it's listening to everything I say and seeing everything that goes around. Is this scary? But it can be liberating. And if you think about it, and if you think of the power that this is going to have, I think it's undeniable that it will boost society, economy, change. It'll drive new business, and it'll drive the industry, I think, on an unprecedented manner. Now, why is this all relevant to policy? Well, if you think of the architecture for a second, these devices that are sensing everything that goes on around you, where are they going to process all that information? There's one school of thought that says, well, on your smartphone. Like, your wearables will connect to your smartphone. It'll have a mini GPU and, it'll take care of that. That's possible. However, the level of sophistication that you can run on a smartphone like this, and this is almost like the Moore's law adapted to AI, is 18 months behind what you can do if you go to a proper data center. So if you can send all your information to a proper data center, kind of completely racked up with GPUs, what you get is 18 months more sophisticated than what your smartphone can do. And that is not going to change anytime soon. Things develop, but that gap is going to remain. So we can choose being a nation with an infrastructure that takes all that information and processes it where it should on a data center with state-of-the-art CPUs, or we can choose to be 18 months behind. Now, what it takes to send all that information to the data center. So that's an interesting challenge. So first, those wearables, if we want them to connect with cellular connectivity, they're going to be limited in battery power, in thermal dissipation, and in many other things that 6G should take care of. And this is very important. Because you may think, well, first you may think why we're talking about 6G. If you think that, you're wrong, because we need to decide what 6G is going to be now. And we only have 5 years to make it happen. Second, you may think it's going to be, like it's happened before, about more speed. So instead of gigabit per second, let's talk about terabit per second. Well, yes, I think if we just leave it to their own devices, it'll be like that. But that's not going to actually serve anybody's needs, because no one needs more than gigabit per second on your mobile. So I don't think that's what it should be. What it should be is a technology that relieves the device from constraints like those ones I mentioned, so that they make possible cellular connectivity on ultra thin, super small, super efficient sensors, wearables. The second thing that 6G is going to do is to turn the network and the devices onto sensors themselves. So if you ever ridden a Tesla, on the night screen, you can see a representation of the vehicles around your car, right? And even pedestrians when they cross. And the way that's done is with some millimeter wave sensing devices that are installed around the car. Now imagine that instead of those devices that are only for sensing, the whole network, every base station, and every mobile can do the same function. And aggregated provides you with almost like a digital twin version of reality in real time and in a very accurate manner. That has very interesting ramifications and applications. And of course, one of them is national security. But the true challenge is going to still be how we take all that data and we send it to the data center. Even if we have 6G and it's sensing the world and it's allowing, small wearable devices to perform, the whole 3GPP, the whole cellular technology since data was invented, has been biased towards the downlink. Because the way we use internet is massively biased in that direction. So as of today, normally you have 9 times more downlink traffic than uplink. Now, what I just said about AI is going to reverse that bias. And suddenly it's going to put all the burden on the uplink. 6G is going to come to solve that too, and we need to drive 6G to solve that problem. Now, what does have to do with policy? Spectrum. We just saw the pipeline of 800 megahertz that the one big beautiful bill brought, and that is a super important step in the right direction. That is what the cellular industry needs in this country to make sure that 5G can continue, can make things like what I'm talking about that's going to hit the market in the next year, next 2 years, the early versions of everything I'm talking about is going to come. This spectrum is going to take us probably to the beginning of the next decade. But this spectrum is not going to take us to 6G. Why? Because for everything I just said, you're going to need channels, probably of about 400 meg of bandwidth. So just visualize that as super large, much larger than 5G, contiguous blocks of a spectrum in bands that still propagate well enough to make coverage reach everywhere. We definitely going in the right direction, but if we have to skate where the puck is going, we need to continue this work. We need to make sure that we have line of sight with large contiguous blocks of a spectrum on bands that propagate well enough. And we must not forget that other regions have line of sight with solutions like that. Either we can talk about Europe, Asia, or China in particular. They already have a plan. So the future may be scary. I think it's exciting. I think it's going to drive economy like never before. I think this is too important to skip it. And we're going to keep building the most intelligent and the best networks to connect customers, consumers, and enterprises with AI in the right place, with a favorable policy on the spectrum. We will make sure that America not only leads, but dominates. Thank you very much.